Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Early mornings, sometimes unpredictable. It can be beautiful, it can be lazy, it can be patient, or it can be like today. Adriana was awakened by the acrid smell of paint. The girl sat up in bed. Was it imaginary? No, the stench was most obvious. A bright, burning, unforgettable nastiness. Betty, the paint ran out. She heard Uncle Michael's loud voice. Ring more all at once. You don't wear a little bit at a time. That makes sense now. The neighbor was playing his favorite game, which he himself called a marketing ploy. Every spring he took up renovating his house. But he did it wittily with ingenuity. Watch this. He shared his thoughts with his neighbor. The sea is not far here, and the mountains can be seen from the window. Can you do that? Tourist likes such places, so 1 point in our favor is already there. But what's next? Look at this fool, and Uncle Michael poked his cigarette with hatred in the direction of the well-groomed cottage. His owner Ethan was always beautifying his already pleasant property. For this, Uncle Michael regarded him as his rival and class enemy. There he is. The landlord is a rotten lord. He sits there and thinks people will go to him, and they won't go to him, no way. Uncle Michael backed up his words with an expressive figure. You know why, Adriana? Because his house is so shiny in the sun. It's clean. The windows are new, the roof is new. And it's tiled in red. In the yard, buttercups, flowers, flower beds. I planted these, and paths sprinkled with gravel. Ah, yes, a normal person just look behind the fence and immediately run away. Why is that? Adriana was surprised, and because slowly and meaningfully said Uncle Michael, I beg your pardon, God did not give Ethan enough brains. It is clear that in a house like this, if you rent a room, you'll be left without pants. What are the prices for such cleanliness and beauty? Well, yes, the girl agreed thoughtfully. And for us? The neighbor continued. Housing is not for beauty, but for the people. There's a weed in the vegetable garden where the porch is sagging. A tourist will look at it and say that it's not expensive. And rightly so, by the way. And why do you renew the fence? Adriana asked. I would leave it as it is. Uncle Michael smiled, as it were. You can't, Adriana, that a crooked porch is nothing. Well, they will say that the owners have incomplete chests of money to fix. This is an understandable phenomenon for a common man. He has not paid billions at his factory either. But the fence is an important object, a calling card, one might say. You can see it from the outside. That's how they judge the owners. If they see a shabby, leaky fence, they'll say drunks live here. You can't stay with them. Now he wrinkles his forehead, trying to remember the difficult word. Marketing is a marketing ploy. And so today, standing on the porch with his chest full, inhaling the pungent aroma of Uncle Michael marketing, Adriana remembered this conversation they had had. At the time, she had thought her neighbor was talking nonsense. But time had shown that the truth was behind Uncle Michael and his unsophisticated worldly wisdom, and the rooms in the house, the barn, and even the dovecote were rented from him. Some hitchhikers were settling in, but they avoided Ethan's exemplary cottage, often not even asking the price of the rent. From afar, Uncle Michael was expensive. Shouted Adriana. Why didn't you tell me you were going to paint? Do you want me dead? I can't breathe the smell in there. He was flushed from the heat of the fence, and his head was adorned with a folded cap of newspaper. And you do not breathe here, seriously advised him. You go for a walk, go to the beach, or what? The water. They say it's a nice place. You'll be back in the evening, and the smell will be gone. Well, thank you, Uncle. Adriana put her hand to her chest and playfully bowed. And how is it that I myself have not realized? She went back inside and poured herself some milk. Toxins to neutralize, the girl muttered. But bringing the cup to her mouth, Adriana grimaced. Even the milk seemed to be fragrant too, with nightmare paint. Whatever the case, the neighbor was right. Better get out of here before tonight, since it was impossible to get rid of the stench quickly. All the more reason to take a stroll in the weather. She chose a loose, dark green dress with long slits down the sides and a wide-brimmed straw hat to go with it. "I'm off, Uncle Michael," she shouted. But the neighbor did not answer her. But his son William, tall and seductively bronzed with a tan, came to the fence and nodded. "I understand. Adriana will tell his father. You'll be there soon." She hesitated to answer for a second. William's hair was straight and black, like an Indian, and his features, his thick parted eyebrows, his thin, eagle-eyed nose, reminded him of an Indian, of a young chief, and he knows he's good-looking, or else he wouldn't be so naked from the waist down. He knows how to walk around naked up to his waist. He's got muscles that play under his tan skin, and the main thing is that he can smile a little with the corner of his lips and give him a look that makes him want to burst into flames. Adriana shuddered, as if waking up from an obsession. "I'll be there tonight," she said, "when the scent has gone out." William nodded, seeing his neighbor off. "She's beautiful," he whispered with a sigh. "Oh, she's beautiful." And almost immediately the back of his head was really slapped by his father's mighty palms. "Daddy, what did the boy throw up for?" And Uncle Michael answered, "What a fool. It's beautiful, and it's not about you. Open your eyes." And he gave his son another slap on the wrist. But it was no longer for stupidity, but as a preventive measure. Adriana walked leisurely through the local market. She looked at the strawberries. She tasted fresh sour cream with her finger, but mostly she just strolled along the counters, catching the greedy glances of the sellers. The saleswomen, on the contrary, looked at her disapprovingly. Adriana was pleased with both. She always liked attention. It filled her with an awareness of her beauty. True, she was guaranteed attention wherever she appeared. So Adriana herself did not know why she went to the market. Maybe she just wanted to be in a crowded place, and the market was quite suitable for that. There was a lot of hustling and haggling, and the swearing was terrifying. There was local news too. In a word, it was perfect to distract herself from the memory of the half-naked Indian, who happened to be her neighbor. Do not be distracted from her goals. Adriana, she repeated to herself, William, no matter how handsome he was 3 times. We are not a match. But today the old spell was not working. Either the hot southern spring was to blame, or maybe it was just a girl's desire for real, tangible passion, and that passion was hers. There she walks behind the fence. "Here you go, beautiful," shouted with a thick oriental accent. Tall salesman. "Catch, my dear. No money." Adriana threw up her hand and caught a large, dark red apple. "Thank you," she smiled, and brought the fragrant, water-drop-covered fruit to her lips. The fruit to her lips. "Eat it, don't be afraid." "I washed it." The girl took a delicious bite of the round apple fruit with her teeth. The juice just spurted out of it. A fresh, almost honeyed sweetness filled her mouth. The picture was beautiful, and the seller was admiring it so much that he did not notice that a small line had already lined up at his counter. "I would like some juicy apples like the girls," said the fat woman who stood closest to the counter. Judging by the sun-touched skin, she was one of the first holidaymakers. "Not ripe, do not slip." "Why are you talking so pretentious?" The salesman resented and discreetly winked at Adriana. "Thank you for the advertisement. I have all the goods. First grade. Who do you want to ask?" Adriana giggled and moved on. The market had already bored her. It was more of a tourist attraction, especially for those from the north. They stumble into the bazaar and their eyes are at once dazzled by the exquisite variety of fruits. Orange transparent to the light apricots are huge, gently pink peaches, large and dark cherries, the most delicious in the world, and white, sour, sweet, which you eat, and cannot stop. And what of the smells? And in general, those who come to the resort town. It always seems that here it is found a real earthly paradise. The endless blue sea splashes here. The white foam on the crest of the wave runs to the shore hurriedly, and the wind gently ruffles the huge palm leaves. The lighthouses are not glazed. And why? There are no frosts here. Balconies woven with wreaths and flowers. What kind of flowers here? Huge, colorful ones. And how many of them? Where do you see such things in the north? Women wave beautiful fans and wear light hats or tie their heads with weightless scarves. You can also wear beautiful summer dresses for most of the year. This is the South. Baby, smiling indulgently. Local guys admiring the white-skinned, surprised Northerners. The resort town is a box full of vacation wonders. But it's all paradise for visitors only. To stay here forever, it's not for everyone. Locals have long and well know the price of this 2-week vacation happiness. In a season of monetary abundance, golden fountains beat from under the ground and rain from the merciful heavens. Accommodations can be rented, and in the summer tourists are happy to rent any. Even miserable bunks in shabby buildings where you can only keep chickens, and even that is a pity for birds. The good thing is that the prices in new-fashioned hotels, which altogether have been renamed into hotels, bite. So many people don't even want to look at them. And they are right, by the way. There are no 5-star hotels here anyway. All the usual average, breakfast, change of towels. Well, and the proximity to the sea, too, affects the price. Well, and the market, yes, this is a special item. In a season in the market, a shaft of buyers. All want fruit grown under the southern sun. But at other times, everybody knows that there is almost no work in resort zones. So here you pull all that you have earned during the summer. Such economy on life in the South. Adriana even picked herself an apple out of the talkative crowd and wandered to the sea. Swimsuit. But I still managed to forget it at home. But what's the harm in that? There are many humble places here. And the girl knew them all by heart from an early age. It wouldn't hurt to freshen up, she thought. The sun was getting hotter, and William, with his naked torso, was still in front of her eyes. Her mind must have played tricks on her today, giving her pictures one after the other with startling clarity and frightening realism. Here she imagined William pulling up on his hands and easily jumping over the fence. And she comes closer and runs her hand down his hollow belly to the edge of his shabby jeans. Here William pulls a bobby pin out of her hair and it spreads over her shoulders. And he dips his hand into it, puts his hot palm on the back of her maiden's head, and leans down to her lips. It's crazy. I wonder how long I've been such a fan of William. Beauty and sexuality made angry girl. Fortunately, there were boulders looming ahead, and behind them Adriana was well aware of it. There was a wild beach at this time. There was never anyone on it. The girl dismounted and slapped her bare feet on the sandy path. The sand was very hot, but the smell of nearby water made her hurry and almost go on a run. So you could say everything was balanced. There was no one on the beach, just as she had anticipated. Now that was just great. By the way, those boulders, that piece of beach. Adriana had been used to thinking of it as her own since childhood. After all, this place was visible from everywhere, and she was the only one to swim here. That's when Adriana came up with the idea that in fact nobody but her could see these boulders, because they were enchanted and Adriana could see them. So it turns out that they are only hers and no one else's, a child's fantasy, and she knew it herself. But still, she still liked to think that she was the only one who saw and knew about this little corner of tranquility in a crowded city. The girl went behind the boulder and dragged her sundress over her head. Uncle Michael wasn't fooled. The water is wonderful. It might be a little cold for visitors, but Adriana is a local. When she was a kid, you couldn't get her out of the water. She swam a couple of small circles with pleasure, and at last she felt the intrusive haze of no other than her neighbors. Her thoughts became cold and clear again. William, good as he was no match for her. What is it about him, except his looks, that is kind? He's a guy, a hard worker, doesn't drink, treats his parents with deference. That's all true. Well, aren't there a lot of good, hard-working guys like him? There aren't many who don't drink, that's true. But Adriana had her own bar. She wasn't about to sink below. She wanted a wealthy husband. Of course, they didn't have Dubai millionaires walking the streets. It's a resort. People aren't rich, and where do you find a good job here? There was a time. Adriana was hired by a local modeling agency, the only one in town. At first, there was still some work to be done. While there was hope for the girl, she was often invited to work as a promoter at the opening of new hotels, and once even in a car dealership. But soon enough, she became convinced that men with money on the girl's promoters and do not look. They are like furniture to them, or, for example, paintings on the wall. So there is something that pleases the eye. Why else should I bother? Every once in a while, though, they had an affair with a girl. But it was just an adventure for a couple of hours. Even the girls rarely got a whole night. But afterwards, they got hurt. After watching the tears of her companions, Adriana decided that 2 hours of playtime did not interest her, and no one offered them anything else. She began to think about giving up this futile occupation. But the final decision was not made for fear of quitting. And right that very day, another girl from the agency would meet the very prince of money that Adriana intended for her. It all worked itself out. One fine morning, Adriana was summoned to the director's office. Kathy, the sole owner of the agency, was sitting in her leather chair, looking menacingly at the young model. Adriana shrank back. Just to chat in this office, no one called. Kathy was a stern lady and allowed no familiarity. Adriana doubted if this lady even had friends. It was absolutely impossible to imagine her as an ordinary girl, chatting about trifles, discussing men, drinking wine on the summer veranda when she was an 18-year-old girl without a penny in her pocket and went to storm the Capitol. To her credit was only a pretty face and even a diploma for winning a reading contest. Alas, this was not enough to enter a theater institute. But my compatriot did not get lost, quickly made connections in the crowd. In a year, she became an actor's wife. The guy, in contrast to his wife, was talented, and his career was uphill fast. In a couple of years, his face did not disappear from the posters, and it seems there was not a single movie in which he would not have starred. But Kathy was tormented by jealousy of her husband and a nasty feeling that she was not living her life. A beautiful apartment, a country mansion car last model. All this was a credit to her talented husband. And I'm in it all, where with despair she questioned. Her husband didn't understand her, and you said he was my reliable rear. You're my home, my comfort? It's not enough for you, she screamed. It seemed that her husband was away all day on the set, and came home with traces of makeup on his face, so plain that he does not hear her, and repeats the words of another role. You even talk as if the cameras are pointed at you. She was indignant. He only guiltily held up his hands. He felt sorry for his wife. Yeah, and he couldn't stand scandals. Don't get upset. Right? He asked tenderly, trying not to be offended by the mysterious nature of women. But he came home later and later, explaining it as a necessity for production, so to speak. But Kathy understood that he just didn't want to get into another scandal. And she herself no longer wanted to quarrel, but also could not stop. So when her husband showed up one morning and carelessly removed his shirt in front of his wife, Kathy breathed a sigh of relief. Fresh scratches on his back were so eloquently red that no amount of filming could explain them. Though it was impossible to say that her husband hadn't tried. The question was whether they would believe him. The wife, on the other hand, did not want to. Kathy filed for divorce and received a substantial sum of money as a parting gift. Ah, Kathy. Her ex-husband scolded her angrily. Well, if you had said that you were bored, I would have put you in a commercial. What's the point? It's no big deal. Subdue it yourself, strictly said Kathy, but without any anger. Her innate fairness made her admit that her husband was a decent and generous man after all. From that moment and for the rest of their lives, between the ex-spouses reigned complete peace, harmony, and boundless trust in each other. The actor considered it lucky. Luck, the common merit. Returning to her hometown, she opened a modeling agency and quite well settled in the new conjuncture of hotels, stores. Everyone needed publicity. And is there any better publicity than a beautiful girl? Kathy's ex-husband readily responded to the request to promote the agency on all social networks and to be the guest of honor at the opening. Such a high-profile launch couldn't help but attract local attention. The agency would have had enough bread and butter under any circumstances. But Kathy was tough on the models, and everyone knew that the slightest slip-up was enough to get a knee on the ass. The girls trembled at the mere mention of the agency's formidable owner's name. Adriana was not afraid of being fired. Rather, it was the very unpleasant conversation with her boss that frightened her. You called me, Kathy, she asked. How do you explain that? Was she attacked by her mistress? What do you want me to tell you? What do you mean? The girl was confused. Kathy, though notorious for her cool temper, usually did not pick on her without reason, but she did explain the reasons for her displeasure, if there were any. Kathy pointed furiously at Adriana's long fuchsia-colored fingernail, pointing to her waist. Here's a pound gain, if not 3. And you ask me what I'm a photographer of half the night? Only your pictures were retouched, and I'll tell you the truth. It's not perfect. And that Adriana even laughed with relief, understandably. That's how the boss leaned back in her chair. Then you should understand that soon your heels will start to break under you. About the potholes of cellulite on your thighs and ass, I tactfully kept silent. But tell me, how can I offer such an embarrassment to my customers? The whole town works with us, and everyone wants to see what's beautiful. The girl shrugged. Kathy was right. Adriana had indeed been breaking her diet a lot lately. But what could you do when leaf lettuce and cucumbers were so bad you were always hungry and dizzy? Sorry, Kathy, with a defiant swagger, she said. I'm starving. Adriana expected that right now her boss would throw something heavy at her, like that weighty papier press she had on the table. But Kathy laughed unexpectedly. You're all right, she winked at the cheeky girl. I like them, and you seem to have a brain. Okay, I agree that at your height to have weight 42 kilograms is unhealthy. And frankly, it looks lousy too. But see, I don't set the fashion standards. And we have to live up to them. So you're going to have to lose weight. Or fuck it? Fuck him. Without thinking, replied Adriana. I don't work for you anymore. After leaving the agency, the girl had given no less than a month to gastronomic debauchery. Shish kebab, ice cream, chocolate, and innumerable cakes with cream, caramel, jam, condensed milk, and strawberry jam. Adriana put on a few pounds, but it made her look even more seductive. Finally, it was noticeable all the supposed nature, rounded, and teenage leanness has given way to an exciting femininity. It seems that it was then that William went mad. One summer night, he jumped over the fence and with a bang dropped to his knees in front of an incomprehensible Adriana. Marry me, he exhaled. Adriana sniffed her neighbor's breath carefully. She didn't smell of liquor, but she asked William, just in case, if you were drunk. We were having a party. I'm not drunk. The boy was indignant. He cocked his head. The moonlight made his dark hair glow. It was blue in color, giving his resemblance to the ancient Indian people its final touch. I want to marry you to me. Well, I love you, Adriana. How else to say? Where are the flowers? I climbed over the fence without a bouquet. I want everything to be beautiful. Now William jumped up from his knees and rushed back to the fence. I'll get Adriana. I'll go out the proper way, through the gate. You just wait. The girl yawned and stretched herself sweetly. Then she locked the gate and went to bed. William must have come after all. At least the huge bouquet of wildflowers lying by the gate. It was a direct indication of that, but the deadbolt made it clear to the beloved boy that he was not welcome here. William did not engage in any more such conversations, and Adriana continued her search for a rich suitor. This time she decided to act wisely, not to chase ghosts, but to choose one particular target, and hit it until she hit it. She didn't have to choose. As a matter of fact, the only man wealthy by the standards of the city was the owner of the jewelry store. The prices were so high that mere mortals would not go there. But the tourists were understandable. There were gusts of extravagance from sudden resort romances and the very atmosphere of relaxation. The money accumulated over a year's work here was spent instantly. The owner of the jewelry shop was a very special man. No woman had ever been able to loop him, and the desire was the sea. And he himself did not deny himself the pleasure to have an adventure for a week or two. Permanent relationships didn't seem to interest him at all. But Adriana decided to take her time. For starters, she found out that her prince liked to spend his evenings in a downtown nightclub. A couple of times a week he would go there and leave with a new girlfriend in his arms. Adriana would watch him there daily. She was annoyed by the thundering music and the crowds of tipsy people. But the goal was still the goal. It was worth enduring for the sake of it. Do you come here often? She heard a soft, masculine voice one day, almost beside her ear. Adriana turned around, ready to blow off the next annoying suitor. Suddenly, she saw the one for whom she had put up with the noise and crowds here for a few days. Benjamin introduced himself as the owner of the jewelry store. "And your name?" "No, don't say it." He held up his hand in warning. "Let me guess. You, Camille?" "No," the girl smiled. "Emily, then. It is warmer now." She encouraged him. "Only I'm not Emily." "Adriana," excitedly. Benjamin exclaimed. "Adriana, yes." She nodded. Benjamin, obviously pleased with himself, and looked at his new acquaintance with pleasure. His gaze slid over the girl's lips and moved lower along her collarbone neck. He lingered on the tempting cleavage peeking out of her cleavage. "Adriana," he said it slowly, as if tasting the name. "Here's to familiarity." They left the club together. Adriana knew exactly what Benjamin was counting on, and that's why she decided to make him wait. "What comes hard is always more desirable to you or to me?" asked Benjamin as Adriana got into his car. "To me," she said, smiling. "If you don't mind letting me down." "What kind of difficulty, girl?" He laughed. Adriana stared furtively at the man she had chosen as her husband. No, Benjamin was not handsome. Perhaps in his youth he had been quite handsome. His blonde hair, large gray eyes. His features were soft, not a single sharp line. But a dozen years had passed since his youth, and here in front of Adriana was a fat man with extensive bald spots. How old was he now, I wonder? 28 to 30, such a beauty. "And you live in a hut with an incomprehensible intonation," said Benjamin, when he saw Adriana's place. Either admired or, on the contrary, expressed contemptuous surprise. "Well, as the saying goes, it's not the place that makes a man beautiful at all. On the contrary, I invite you to visit. I will definitely invite. But not right away," softly replied the girl. "Thank you for driving me." "So that's it." He even whistled in surprise. "It's been a long time since I've seen someone so modest." It made me wonder. He was telling the truth. That girl, with her soft voice, innocent smile, and an unexpectedly deep, vicious to the point of impossibility look. She was interesting. Let's continue to get to know each other tomorrow. Maybe Adriana smiled at him again. "I'll probably be free tonight." Today was their 1-week anniversary of their relationship. Adriana was still keeping her admirer at a distance and therefore a full-fledged affair. Their meeting she called No Hurry, and she didn't like the word affair. There was something vulgar about it, something that smacked of Latin American soap operas. That's where they all had affairs. Relationships were better, but the more Adriana got to know Benjamin, the more bored she became with the prospect of seeing him again. The mood was immediately spoiled. It wasn't that Benjamin was stupid or ill-mannered. Rather, he was simply a limited man. He had little interest in anything. In fact, he only had 2 interests in this life: work and sex. Adriana was surprised to find that he could only talk about those 2 topics, and everything else seemed to pass him by. "You don't even watch movies?" she asked. Benjamin shrugged his shoulders. "I do sometimes, but I fall asleep to movies. For me, it's like a sleeping pill. I turn it on in 10 minutes and pass out. I do not know why." Adriana didn't realize right away that it wasn't true, and when she did, she was offended. It dawned on her that Benjamin was apparently just waiting for her to finally say yes, and that he wasn't interested in anything else. He wasn't interested in her. After this sobering revelation, her first and most powerful desire was to end her and Benjamin immediately, and never to resume it again. But when the resentment cooled a little, Adriana thought it all over again. That wasted so much time and effort to hook him, she asked herself, and the thought of continuing to flounder in the lazy, half-asleep swamp that resembled life in their town made her so sad that she immediately wanted to forget. No, that wasn't what I wanted. She remembered the admiring glances she noticed every time she walked down the street. Was there no way she could take advantage of the chances nature had given her? Beauty is also an asset, if you invest it wisely. Invest? No, you can't let Benjamin out of your ego. He is the key to a better life. Adriana believed that everyone has a chance for something more, but not everyone knows how to use it. right? Some people are born into a wealthy family and get to do only what they love. But that rarely happens. Others live in big cities, where there are many opportunities. Some are given talent by nature. And there are others like her, made of the talents of unsupported parents. Nor the metropolis, she has nothing but beauty, which is also short-lived. There's no reason to jump over the top, said the girl to herself. You have to use what you have and not turn your nose up at what life offers. Their meetings with Benjamin continued, and Adriana assured herself that everything was going well. The sea was calm and warm. She didn't want to get out of it at all. So Adriana decided to swim some more, but as she was about to come ashore, she suddenly noticed a sad male figure right next to the boulder under which she had left her clothes. Turn away, she shouted, swimming closer. I have to get dressed. The man turned around, and Adriana gasped in surprise. It was Benjamin. In person, and certainly not going to spare a girl's modesty. I came to see you, and your roommate said you were sick from the paint, so he sent you for a swim. And here's your luck. You're swimming alone, and you're naked. And you ask me to look away. Am I impotent or what? It's a big beach, the girl grumbled. How did you know I was here? So you showed me this place, laughed Benjamin. You said you liked to swim here, didn't you? It wasn't hard to find. Well, he pulled his shirt over his head. You'll squeeze in, or is there not enough sea for two of us? He laughed and ran into the sea, and the girl clutched at the fountain of spray. Mommy, she whispered. Nothing more inappropriate could have been imagined. Like a hippopotamus, only the hippopotamus had more natural grace. But Benjamin, swimming briskly toward her, was not embarrassed. So he grinned carnivorously. He swam up to her. I've got you, mermaid. Now do not let go until you fulfill my wish, you little mermaid. In the fairy tale, there was a fish with wishes. In the fairy tale, there was an old man who was no longer to the wishes, laughed Benjamin, very pleased with his joke. He touched his chubby fingers to the girl's lips. And what are the lips of our mermaid? In a muffled voice, said Benjamin. Soft, delicate, delicious, I guess. Adriana swiftly went under the water and swam away. Excuse me, Benjamin. Where are you going, mermaid? Stopped, to whom I say. He swam after. But his speed was not the same as that of the girl. He was much heavier and also worse to swim. So when he came ashore, tired and confused, Adriana was already fully dressed. Benjamin, I'm sorry, she repeated. But it's too soon for us. I can't go that fast. Benjamin shook his head frantically. A few drops of water caught in his ear. And now they were in the way. It was getting on his nerves. I'm sorry, Benjamin, don't be offended. What a fool you are. Not a bitch, but a fool. He seemed to have finally managed to get rid of the excess moisture in his ears, and he took in all his diminutive stature that Adriana didn't understand his reaction. Fool, you say? He flashed a smile. And all women are fools. You think I didn't see your cunning plans. You think it's a saying. Who's going to buy a cow when milk for free is still worth it? Oh, girl. What century are you living in? Stuffing yourself. You gotta know when to stop. That's what I'm telling you as a salesman. You disappointed me. What? You're welcome, Adriana replied with a frown. She was hurt that her game was so easy to figure out, and that she seemed to have lost. I'm doing dope. I don't want a one-time relationship. Go to someone else for that. What's wrong with you? Now it was his turn to be surprised. Oh, you're such a dope. Did you think you'd break down and I'd marry you for it? Oh, you knave, poor thing. Money marries money. That's what you understand, girl. And frankly, Benjamin looked at Adriana almost sympathetically. You're too simple for me in our kolkos. You may as well be an enviable maiden. But that's just him jabbing his finger furiously down at the sandy shore here, taking you out of here to where the background is different, and you'll find yourself instantly being what you are, a common commoner on the fringes of civilization. You know, it's like comparing a peasant horse to an Arabian racehorse. You don't have any real pedigree, and that's innate. It's either there or it's not, and it won't be. So I'm sorry, mermaid, but that's not the kind of bride I want. Adriana listened to Adriana's sermon, biting her lip in anger. You bastard, she said in a trembling voice. You are such a wretched man, aren't you? Who needs you?" She walked quickly away from him. The sandals were uncomfortable. Rubbed her wet feet. Benjamin easily caught up with her. "I have a car nearby," he said, as if nothing had happened. "I can give you a ride. I'll be all right. What do you think?" Benjamin gave her a hefty slap on the bottom of the back. This was your chance to make it up to her. Adriana got home earlier than she planned. The smell of paint, however, had already weathered, and the girl was even a little disappointed. And if the stench still held, I would lie under the fence now, inhale the abomination and die, she thought grimly. The humiliation she felt from Benjamin's scathing words was as excruciating as an unhealed cut. The naive girl had decided to seduce the rich Pinocchio. And Pinocchio understood this and laughed at her plans. "I'm a fool," she whispered through her sobs. Fool. The tears were small and angry. They brought no relief. Uncle Michael looked out from behind the fence, looked at Adriana sitting on the porch, and shook his head grimly. There was nothing to say. In the evening, there was a knock at the wicket door, and Adriana shouted openly, "What are you knocking for?" A good upbringing has erupted. Probably used to climb over the fence, not embarrassed. She was sure it was William who had decided to pay her a visit. He was all she needed to make her happy. "I don't know," came a strange voice from the gate. "I don't like climbing over fences. I haven't climbed one since I was a kid. And then maybe just a couple of times." The girl looked up. A stout boy with a rucksack on his back was walking up the path toward her. He was dressed for the road. A typical hiker, faded jeans, a khaki t-shirt, and sturdy boots on thick soles. He had sunglasses hanging from the waistband of his jeans. Liam introduced himself. "So," Adriana asked blankly. "It's no big deal, Liam, that you wanted to rent a room." He wasn't embarrassed. Or at least a corner or a little shed. Adriana sighed. Like most of the villagers, renting out houses was a big part of her income. But today, talking to someone, showing them the room, negotiating a price, was beyond her strength. "Would you go to Ethan?" She waved a hand toward the ornate cottage that stood nearby. "He has plenty of rooms to rent, and the conditions are better than mine. I go from him." Liam laughed. He laughed. He didn't like the price. She asked curiously. It might be good information for her. If Ethan charged too much, they should be able to find cheaper accommodation, even if it was less comfortable. She did. Why, everything was very decent. And I liked the room. The food was delicious. The hosts were also friendly people. Then why didn't you stay there? Well, if everything is all right, why did you decide to look for happiness here? No pigs, what's not here? Adriana even got up from the porch. "Pigs. Yes, pigs," still confused, Liam explained. "I slept there for the night, and then I went out in the morning to get coffee. There was one around the corner, and it came out squealing like it was being slaughtered. And she was all dirty, and she was a big bastard pig. I was scared, I swear. This beast weighs twice as much as me. Scary as hell. I ducked away from her. So she stupidly went right into the porch, where I was standing, hitting me with her face. Banged her face on the step, and she's lying on the ground, screaming even more." Ethan ran and saw the pig lying in the yard and yelling. "I don't know what to do. What's he up to?" He was blushing with anger. He shouted at his wife. He apologized to me himself, and my wife came in when she saw the bastard. And she started to go on and on about her. "You bruised your face, my good man. You should have seen that face. It's got such an animal face, you can't even dream about it. So much for luxury service. What do you know? I was scared shitless, and the piggy bruised their face, do you see?" "Why?" the girl asked with a gaggle of laughs. "Did the pig do it at all, that he was breeding pigs now?" "No, he brushed it off Ethan. He told me later that it wasn't him, but his wife had the pigs. Thought she'd slaughter him afterwards. He ran his finger down his throat, and she got attached to the animal. How to slaughter it? Then the time came. She was in tears. She felt sorry for him. That's how they had this pig and grew up like a beloved Yorkie dog. They're corgi, only it, unlike the doggy, that still monster out of the pen, broke out. I can't get over the laughter." Adriana was already choking. "How hilarious? I'll tell Uncle Michael tomorrow. Let him gloat. You'll give me the room, Liam smiled. Or should I keep looking for a place to stay? Adriana opened the door to the house. Yes, for a story like that, a room. The whole house. Come in, don't be shy. My name is Adriana, by the way. Although Adriana quoted a high price, it was still less than Ethan's piggishness. Liam agreed without haggling. Let's drink to familiarity, he suggested, and pulled a dark, beautiful braided bottle out of his backpack. I bought it locally. I think it was produced by the locals. Anyway, it must be delicious. I wanted to save it for a special occasion, but apparently today is just such a special occasion. He must have winked at me somehow. Take the pig's stress off. Go ahead. The girl agreed easily. I don't have any glasses. You'll have to use cups, and I've got some. They heard the cheerful voice of a neighbor over the fence. Uncle Michael, why aren't you coming over? Were you eavesdropping? But the girl. The neighbor pulled off his cap and smoothed his hair. You were moaning so hard. I got scared, so I thought you might be in some kind of pain. And then when I heard about the pig, I knew it was okay. The three of them were sitting on the patio of Adriana's house, drinking young rose wine and eating cheese. Uncle Michael was rejoicing at how embarrassed his competitor was and was telling tales of his youth. Liam kept up with him, only his stories were different about travel. And Adriana sat between them drinking wine and eating cheese and laughing, and suddenly felt absolutely 100% happy. The southern night spread its blanket over the city. Liam looked up at the sky and said, "How big are the stars here?" "They are always like that here," she smiled. And Uncle Michael poured wine glasses and solemnly proclaimed, "Well, here's to the galaxy. And to the fact that these stars do not fall on our heads." He glanced expressively at Ethan Cottage, though. It wouldn't do anyone any harm. Glasses clinked. The night rang again with merry laughter. William, standing on the porch of his house, smiled quietly and looked up into the bottomless sky as well. The stars were indeed huge, almost as big as a man's palm. Adriana was in a cheerful mood in the morning. Yesterday's insult to Benjamin didn't seem so bad anymore. After all, it was clear that he was just mad because he was not allowed to the suite. Well, that's the way it is. He ain't the first, he ain't the last. It's a rare man who's capable of losing with dignity. Run to make peace with him. Of course, Adriana was not going to, but she really wanted to rub his nose in it, to show what a wonderful bride he missed. And the girl barely opened. The stores took with them the deposit Liam and went to buy herself the best dress in the world. One was found almost immediately, a short, coffee and milk-colored dress with gold buckles on the thin straps. Spinning in front of the mirror, Adriana sighed. What can I say? The dress was, to put it bluntly, on the edge of propriety. Vulgar of her own free will, Adriana would never have bought such a dress. But now it was exactly what was needed to carry out the insidious plan. The modest girl in the elegant fitted outfits Benjamin did not appreciate. What could he do? He is as primitive as an animal. Such a dress from any fashion designer with a worldwide reputation will seem boring if it hides at least 50% of the body. So now let him see what she's wearing. See, there's something to look at. Let him lick his eyes. Looking at her waist-high breasts, endless legs, licks, and envy. He could have had it all, had he shown the least bit more patience. With the dress, Adriana chose shoes on such mind-bogglingly high and thin heels that the saleswoman, looking at the balancing hands of the girl, thoughtfully said, "Well, what kind of chick is that? If you look like a rope walker, you will not walk in such a beautiful way, and I will sit in it." Adriana said with determination, "Sit and show my legs." Of course, it was more bravado for the saleswoman to keep her valuable opinion, which no one asked. I'll practice walking at home, Adriana promised herself, just as long as Liam didn't notice anything. She was lucky. When she returned home, she didn't find her lodger. Liam had gone somewhere just in case, writing down his phone number on a pad. Adriana remembered that yesterday he had said something about liking mountains and just letting him climb them. Strange, if you think about it. Mountain trails are treacherous. Pebbles fly from under the soles. It's easy to get a serious injury. Well, that's the way extreme people like it. And Liam's probably one of the better ones. He wouldn't get underfoot while she was making her beauty look good. The club was full. There was nothing unusual about that, though. Adriana nodded to the bartender as usual, sat down on a high stool at the bar, and ordered a non-alcoholic cocktail. That's the only way today. With all the preparations, the girl had forgotten about food, which meant she couldn't drink anything stronger than juice. It would go straight to her head, and then anything could happen. She had no intention of getting drunk in front of Benjamin. That would ruin everything. She had no doubt that Benjamin would be here tonight. He'd have to find himself a new girlfriend, which meant he would certainly see Adriana, and he should see her cheerful and carefree and unspeakably desirable, and most importantly, unavailable. That's the whole point. He showed up about 40 minutes after her, excited and very pale. He probably didn't even recognize her right away because he plopped down on a vacant seat next to her and ordered a 50 grams of whiskey. The bartender smiled slightly and pointed his eyes at Benjamin. Adriana shook her shoulder. I'm going to start noticing him again. Benjamin drank his glass in a gulp and called the bartender over. Say that again. Adriana stirred the ice cubes in her glass with a straw. How is the jewelry magnate doing? Smiling, she asked. Benjamin flinched. Adriana, is that you? How? Why have you been a dull evening? Nonchalantly, she said. So I decided to go for a walk. I walked and walked. I saw people hanging out, so I went out too. Music and dancing. It's fun. What are you drinking whiskey for? That's the kind of occasion, he gloomily replied, that they don't serve vodka here. 'Cause I'd rather have Adriana's problems. A whole lot of problems. He tapped his glass lightly on the bar. The bartender immediately turned to him. One more time, one more time, one more time. In a rasping voice, Benjamin said, Do it again, friend, just this time. Pour 2 100s at once. So you don't have to go back and forth, right? Adriana, that's how it is. How life turns. Yesterday you were the master of the world today. Today you wash the toilets. How do you rhyme? Maybe I'm a poet. I see, indifferent, shrugged her shoulders. The gold magnet's business is not good, and I'm not a tycoon anymore. He grinned crookedly and sneakily. The IRS, got a hold of me. And there's all sorts of things that got out. No, you wouldn't understand. You don't know these things. Well, to put it more clearly, anyway, if I don't find a couple of million cases, they'll close the store soon. And then who knows? Maybe they'll take me with them too, He made a grating pattern with his fingers. That's the way it is with me. You wouldn't happen to have that kind of money, would you? My sea mermaid. I might have some in my pocket. And you forgot about it. I haven't got any pockets. The girl laughed, ignoring Benjamin's sarcasm. It's a pity you've got such a bad luck. Such a bad luck streak, isn't it? Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for you. Have a drink with me, mermaid. But it'll be over too, won't it? All bad things must come to an end. Even the plague. He looked at her face. No, he didn't. He stared, as if he were looking for something and couldn't find it. His eyes were creepy, red, inflamed. Was he crying or something? No, I don't think so. People with a high fever have eyes like that. He said, twisting the glass in his hands. I was up all night last night after that conversation, after the shame I had brought upon myself. I was ashamed. I thought and thought about myself, and I realized that it was my destiny. Maybe for the first time in my life, she gave me such a gift, a real girl, pure and sincere. And I treated her like a bastard last time. My ego was getting the better of me, I'm used to being welcomed by anyone. And here's what a princess said. She's got some serious principles. I got carried away. Can you believe it? I thought I'd come to you in the morning. I'll be on my knees, and I'll get forgiveness. And then we'll get married. Let's get out of here. What's there to catch? Adriana nodded, hiding her smile. And in the morning, I have my whole life. I've made a wreck of it. What can I give you now, except debts and poverty? You shouldn't have stuck up for yourself. I got punched in the nose. So, she asked, there's nothing you can do about it now. Nothing at all. What is there to do? Adriana, I haven't got any money. How about asking for a loan if you try borrowing from someone? Who can you borrow from in this town? He said no. All right, Adriana, never mind. I wish I'd never married you. I really wish I had. We'd have made a good couple. Adriana didn't answer. She tried to think what was going on. It was clear that something very important was happening right now. This was a pivotal moment in her destiny. But she couldn't tell if it was a chance to win it all at once or not. What if I found the money? She asked. Her heart sank. She was afraid to hear the answer. Benjamin smiled condescendingly. Where could you find it? Fool, are you a millionaire underground? As a citizen Koreko, tell me, what if I bring the money? Well, maybe. Then Benjamin smiled. I'll close my debts on the same day, and you and I will get married. And we'll go and do our great business someplace. No matter where. As long as it's not in this swamp, where even frogs can croak. Lazy. Adriana nodded. It was a chance after all. But perhaps if she finds the 2 million. No, it was still strange to argue with himself, girl. It seems that I did not want to invest the money, but on the contrary, to marry a rich man. But on the other hand, isn't it true that before you can get something, you have to invest it first? I should have looked for money. That thought immediately made me feel uncomfortable. Where would one get that kind of money? A loan? No, there was nothing to think about. Who would give her that kind of money? No bank would agree. All she has is unofficial income from renting a house. So the bank is out right away, and even more. And there's nothing to count on, if only to sell the house. But who's going to buy a ruined house? So it's not a dream, is it? It's not a great chance. It's just life dipping her face in a puddle. You can't count on getting married to Benjamin. I'm sorry about that too. Benjamin, said Adriana. On the way home, she stopped at the store and bought cheap wine. For some reason, she wanted to get drunk, and with some horrible, disgusting booze. Open it right away, the girl asked the clerk. I do not have a corkscrew at home. To go home in a vulgar dress to cry and sip from a bottle of vile wine. What more could a desperate man want? Why is life so unfairly arranged? She didn't like Benjamin at all. But now she was drinking because of him. Because he appreciated her now, when he had nothing else. And while there was nothing else, he didn't care about her. She also likes William. The local aborigine, he probably loves her, and she can't be with him because he's a pauper like herself. But poverty is not part of her future plans for life. The bottle of wine was rapidly emptying, and Adriana's legs were wobbling more and more. Adriana, she did not look back, though the voice sounded familiar. Get off, she waved the bottle. She didn't have time to talk, whoever it was. It was time to let go and go her own way. She sounded drunk. She heard from her side. You can hardly walk. Come on, somebody's strong arms lifted her into the air like a child. That's the way to go. Don't drink anymore. She pressed her cheek to the man's hard chest and thought, tiredly, that whoever he was a good man. Right before her eyes was a small wooden amulet on a leather cord. Who had she seen it on? Something familiar at all. Where had it come from? How did she know it? She touched the wooden figure with her finger. And suddenly she remembered exactly what William was wearing. Let me on my feet, she asked just before she got home. I have a lodger who will see that you brought me home drunk. He will think that the drunkard lives. William carefully lowered her to the ground. Adriana swayed. He supported her by the elbow. William, that Adriana wondered how to accurately express everything that lay on her heart like a heavy stone. Nothing. She sighed, realizing she couldn't find the right words. William, you just kiss me and go. Adriana, he didn't finish. Well, what? Angry she what? Adriana, are you telling me that you don't like me anymore? And you met a young fairy and proposed to her. And you're getting married the day after tomorrow? No, I didn't. Well, that's great. And she put her arms around his neck, made him bend over, and pressed her lips firmly against his. William put his arm around her waist, and Adriana thought fleetingly that she herself didn't know if it was a hug, or if he was just afraid she wouldn't be able to stand on her feet. Adriana whispered his breath right into her lips. He smelled of strawberries and mint. Maybe we shouldn't. It's kind of supposed to be. My line, she replied, softly, touching his lips. We girls are supposed to be the ones who break. I'm not. He pulled away. I just don't want you to kiss me drunk. That's all. We're so delicate. She grumbled exasperatedly, pulling away from him. Violets all over the sun-drenched field. Why don't you touch them? Adriana, well, wait. William took her by the hand. What's your hurry? Leave me alone. I want to go home. She stepped firmly into the courtyard and stopped 2 paces from the house. The light was on in the windows, and Liam, perched on the windowsill, was typing something into his phone on the porch, grunting. Ethan, the freedom-loving pig, was sleeping soundly. I think, uncertainly, Liam said, that this pig is stalking me. Adriana smiled sadly. She was a woman after all, even though she was a pig. On second thought, though, the girl flopped down heavily on the ground next to the porch. The pig opened one eye, but when she was sure no one was threatening her, she fell asleep again. Ethan's wife was running around calling loudly for her beloved piglet. Maybe we should tell the landlady that her pet was here offering Liam. Otherwise, the man is nervous looking for his piggy, and she's sleeping here. Oh, I think Adriana objected. She doesn't want to go home at all. Look, she suddenly giggled hysterically. Do you know how much money they'll give you for the pig? 2 million would do it. Well, that's a bit of a stretch. Really? Says Liam. 2 million for the pig. Why do you want the money? Do you? The girl answered dryly. And just 2 million for the treatment of a grandmother from Astrakhan. And what will you give me? Liam said this without smiling. If it's for the grandmother, of course I will. You see, just a week ago, I sold my parents' apartment. So anyway, I've got the money. But you have to promise me something in return. All right. What do you want? You promise me you'll be my wife. Hey, will you do that? Oh my God. Another beggar mentally groaned. Adriana, why do only beggars want me as a wife? Okay, but only the money up front. She joked. Liam vowed to put his hand to his heart. Immediately after submitting the application to Adriana's wedding bureau, honestly. A pig of a witness, the girl rose from the ground and held out her hand to Liam. Help me through the window. It's a shame to wake the witness. Liam woke her up at 20 in the morning. Wake up, Adriana. We're going to be late for the wedding bureau. Why are you so sleepy? She didn't immediately know what he was talking about. Late for what? What bureau? Where's the pig? It's here. Liam pointed to the window with his finger. There was a pig in a dog collar, chained to the porch. I bought it. Liam informed her mundanely. As long as he's so attached to me, it's okay to let him stay with us. Now get up, Adriana. I've already checked with the wedding bureau and they're accepting applications until noon. If you fall asleep again, we'll definitely be late. And the $2 million. Adriana mumbled sleepily. I'll give you. I've already transferred it to your account. Come on, Adriana, we're running out of time, aren't we? What if there's a line? Don't be ridiculous. What could it be that you just said about the money, that you've already transferred it to me? Yeah. Adriana jumped up and rushed to her phone. Liam hadn't lied one bit. 2 million had been deposited into the girl's account. And that was before she and Liam even made it to the wedding bureau. That's amazing. So she could do without getting married. She shook her head. And they say miracles don't happen. That's a silly thing to say. What kind of ring do you want, Adriana? There's a jewelry store near here. We can stop by after the bridal bureau. Wait, I'm here. Listen, I just remembered I have a case. It's very important. She was pacing around the room, trying to find her dress and put on her shoes, and comb her hair at the same time. You what? Where are you going? I'm sorry, Liam. Adriana took a deep breath and held her breath for a few seconds. Liam, I can't marry you. You see, I can't. He asked me again. But you promised. You promised me. Yes, I know I did. She answered angrily. But I didn't think you'd really give me the money. I didn't have it in my head. I thought it was just, a joke. I'll give it back to you later. And Adriana ran out of the house, almost tripping over the sleeping pig. And she ran straight to the jewelry store. Benjamin's. A little panting, she asked the two girls in matching uniform blouses synchronously nodded. Adriana whirled past security and burst into Benjamin's office. "I found the money," she blurted out from the threshold. "Exactly 2 million, as agreed, Adriana." Benjamin looked at her tiredly. "Well, will you stop it already? I already said I was sorry. You have to make fun of me. Look here, fool." She shoved her phone under his nose and almost forced him to look at the number on the screen. "See, now you believe me, now solve your problems. And then, like you said, let's rush out of here and get married. Great things are waiting for us." Benjamin rubbed his temples and looked at the phone screen again. His palms were sweating, even as if goosebumps ran down his back. "So wait, we have to keep this quiet. So does this mean that I am saved? Is that how it works? Well, I finally got it." Adriana smiled happily. "Saved, saved. You're in no more trouble. Saved, that's good." Adriana is straight. He shook his fist in the air. "That's a good thing. And that's what we'll do then. You transfer the money. Give it to me right now. Why waste time? You go on ahead. Okay, you wait for me. Outside, a man's coming here now. I have an appointment with him. We'll take care of the financial stuff quietly. And then Benjamin's in his room." There's a voice coming from down the hall. "Yes, but he's got a visitor now. Perhaps you better wait. I'm sorry, it's an emergency." That's all right. I'll find my own way." "Adriana, please," Benjamin whispered. "Well, 5 minutes. Wait, I'll be on my way out soon." "But it's late anyway. The man will come in, I'll say hello and come out." "Wait, what's that?" She listened. "Did you hear that sound too?" Benjamin made frightened eyes at Adriana, but she did not think of moving, because in addition to the approaching footsteps, she distinctly heard also the grunting of a piglet. Liam, dressed in a black suit, entered the office, and beside him, not a step behind, a pig in a dog collar on a chain with a dark blue bow on its collar, harmonized perfectly with the owner's tie. "Sorry," whispered Benjamin, looking at the fattened, cartoonish pink pig. "Frosia." Liam introduced his companion to my favorite lady of the heart. "Be careful, Benjamin. If that person falls in love with you, you won't be saved. I know, I've tried." "Hello." He said hello to the piggy, and the stunned Benjamin didn't dignify him with an answer. "Oh, Adriana." Liam was surprised. "And you're here too. What a surprise. Have a seat, Liam." Benjamin struggled to speak. "I see you know each other in some way." "Really?" Liam nodded. "Not very close, though. Adriana was on her way out. Some tea, perhaps." "Thank you. I don't feel like it." He sat down, and Frosia immediately sat down next to him, like an obedient dog. "Now, Benjamin, I'm listening to you. What did Liam decide about the money?" Adriana spoke. "So it's you. Are you from the IRS, Adriana?" Benjamin began. But Liam interrupted him. "No, of course not." "What IRS? I'm the owner of the store, and Benjamin is my manager, and he's a crook. Just the truth, Benjamin. So what are we going to do?" "I've already found the money," Benjamin said glumly. "Adriana is ready to help me." "Ah, Adriana." The pause hung in the air was so long and awkward that even Frosia sensed it and hurried to fill it with a timid grunt. And slowly but surely Adriana began to realize the absurdity of the situation. She burst out laughing and tried to put her hand over her mouth. But she couldn't hold back her laughter. Without stopping to laugh, she ran out of the office. And then she laughed as she ran down the street and later at home. A couple of hours later, Liam and Frosia came packing. Adriana idly watched the gathering. To talk after this morning, and then the meeting in the store, she was simply ashamed. And she had done so badly to the man. And herself too. A little bit of cleverness, you might call it. She had bet on the wrong man. Oh, the wrong man. She could see all her mistakes clearly now. Well, she had set her sights on the man, so she should at least find out everything about him. Liam, noticing her depression, couldn't help but wink. "May things be better for you, Adriana, because that's how I'll get the money into your account." "I will?" she asked grimly. Liam nodded. "Yes, of course, and don't worry, you know, you're not offended." I just misunderstood you. I thought you liked me too. So I thought we could try to be a family. I'm not very good at courting, but it's a good thing it all came out in the end. What could she say? To say that he wasn't wrong, that she really liked him, was silly and would sound disgusting, fake. He would ask why, then she had rushed to Benjamin and would have to tell the truth. I wanted to marry a rich man. No, better not say anything. Whose fault is it that the fox was so cunning that she outsmarted herself? And what will happen to Benjamin? That's the kind of thing he said that would get him thrown in jail. Nothing will happen to him. Don't worry, Liam brushed it off. He quit. Well, that's enough from him. I don't feel like making a fuss. He's going to leave town, go back to his native village. He says he can't see his family anymore. And he has children growing up. Why is Adriana staring at him? Benjamin has kids. He's got his own family, and he's got a wife. Well, yes, Liam shrugged. A boy and a girl. Wife's about to have her third. Didn't he tell you about them? The girl shook her head slowly. Oh, Benjamin. Wasn't he the only one who told her? Nobody knew he was a womanizer. That's how he made himself comfortable. Wife and kids in the village, and he's in town with girls? No, he never told me. I didn't know anything. I thought the whole town thought he was a bachelor. He's got. Oh, forget it. What difference does it make now, after all? Goodbye then. Beautiful Adriana. He held out his hand to her. Goodbye, Liam. I wish you all the best. Frozia, sitting in the yard, grunted triumphantly at the sight of her beloved master. Liam took hold of the thick chain leash and smiled over Adriana's shoulder. Everything will be all right, Adriana. Trust me, everyone finds their happiness sooner or later. She waved after him. He's a good man, what other men would never forgive. And this one still did not hold a grudge against her so kindly. Adriana entered the house, sat down at the table, and suddenly burst into tears. A feeling of loneliness and emptiness came over her. At heart reigned so fierce, such a terrible longing, which happens only in late fall, when no one in the house, and only on the street wind tears the last leaves from the trees, and neighbors all sit at home. Where do you put yourself? God only knows. Or maybe she should just give up and leave. Suddenly, the girl thought of Benjamin. I mean, he's a real bastard. But he was right about one thing. What's there to catch? Everything in this town is upside down. The crooks who run the place manage to make a mess of it. Rich people rent rooms in the private sector and walk pigs on leashes. Everything here is messed up. Everything is upside down. And it has lost its meaning. And no one came to see her off. Adriana thought, already on the bus that took her to the airport. And she didn't want anyone to see her off. Otherwise, why would she leave her own house quietly, late at night, like a thief? The only pity was that William could not see her as she packed her things. She deliberately thought of things to do in the yard, hanging around the fence, looking out. Did not glimpse somewhere a black hair dark as bronze, canned torso in an open shirt. But as luck would have it, either William was sick and hadn't been out all day or he wasn't home. In fact, William was home and had been sitting by the window all day, watching Adriana mindlessly whirl around the yard. Why are you sitting there? His father asked him. Can't you see how the girl is suffering? She's waiting for you to hold her back, isn't she? So come out and stop her. No, father, I won't. Ethan shook his head, and Uncle Michael, looking at his son, he knew he really wouldn't. He had his lips pressed together, mouth on a line, his eyebrows pulled together at the bridge of his nose, and only his fingers are pounding away on the table. Some intricate rhythm or Morse code. Look, if he leaves by himself, you'll be walking around like a lonely man. And don't come to me, you fool, because if he leaves, he'll come back. William said confidently, not taking his eyes off the window. She loves me, father. Well, she loves me, not laugh. Only she's afraid to believe it herself. She'll be afraid to hold me now for the whole century. Let her go. She'll come back when the time comes. Uncle Michael didn't argue with his son. It was obvious enough that William was suffering. He was in pain and scared. But he didn't want to show it. And then his son might be right. Uncle Michael had realized long ago that his son could see right through people. It's kind of a talent of his. Well, God forbid his instincts are right. Turkey isn't much different from the South. Adriana thought, adjusting the toolbox on her shoulder. Except that pedicure on the beach is a popular service here. And why not? You lie in the sun, sunglasses on your face, while a man is working nearby, making you beautiful. Counting her earnings for the month, Adriana was surprised. She managed to earn even more than she did at home by renting out her home. But she still rented out her house. So it turns out that she made 2.5 times as much money. It's still early. Not a lot of people on the beach. Pedicure she offered, moving from one lounger to another. Sometimes she had to say it in German or Russian, but most often English was enough. In 2 years, Adriana managed to figure out the hotels where most Americans stayed. And she tried to work on the beaches closer to them. It wasn't just the language barrier. Americans are just a lot less frozen. At first, Adriana couldn't get used to the fact that Germans and Russians walk around with their roots, don't hide their gray hair, and haven't even heard of makeup. But then I realized that they are just different. Secretly, the girl was proud of her fellow countrymen, no matter how much they were ridiculed by satirists for their excessive attention to appearance. Still, if you see a beautiful woman on the beach, you can safely address her in English. And of course, they were the ones most likely to agree to Adriana's services. Pedicure? She asked the blonde German woman. Getting a refusal, moved on. Adriana, the guy, pushed his sunglasses up to his forehead and winked at her. William, how come she didn't notice him right away? What are you doing here? Getting a tan. He answered simply. Sit down, sit with me. What's it like in there? William, tell me. I haven't been home in over a year. He smiled, sighed, and looked around for shadows. Let's go find a bar. I'm thirsty, and the sun's too hot. Liam's jewelry store was booming. Liam was even thinking of opening a branch in the next town. And his favorite pig, Frosia, had found a boyfriend, and they would soon have a new one. By the way, Liam, there's a new fashion in America. Now everyone had pigs as pets. But of course, most people limited themselves to decorative mini and micro piggies. Now these funny grunting babies were even sold at the market. Benjamin, after his failure as manager, returned to his native village just in time for the birth of his third child. It is true, to be more exact, that Benjamin and his wife had their third and fourth. From time to time, they come to town as a family, and people, you have to hand it to them. Keep quiet about Benjamin's adventures. And Uncle Michael planted lush bushes, bright red, white, yellow peach, and fragrant flowers around his house. They attracted women, and they all wanted to be sure to stop here. And as they say, what a woman wants, God wants. The men dared not cross their ladies. And now Uncle Michael was being lined up. But Ethan wasn't confused either. They started breeding fancy, adorable mini pigs, and were thinking of opening their own kennel. So everyone's doing well, smiled Adriana. And you, how are you doing? What's new? She immediately regretted her question. Now, as William would say, something like that, and I'm all right. Got married. Had a baby. Come over tonight, and I'll introduce you to my wife. Then how do you live? No, she doesn't want to hear the answer. What for? She just asked, but William just shrugged his shoulders. And there's nothing interesting about me. Everything is as it was, as it is. Nothing's changed. Just moved away from my father and mother. The neighbors sold the house, and they gave me a good discount. So now I live separately, but still close to mine. Convenient. I envy you, dreamily said Adriana. Honestly, I envy you. When I left 2 years ago, I thought that I'd never miss you, and that I wouldn't want to go back. Now I'm listening to you. She imagined the sandy path to the boulders, behind which the sea of multitudinous crowds in the market, and even the faces of the traders suddenly seemed so impossibly familiar to her. Catch the beauty. And a huge sweet apple falls into her hands and summer nights in her yard. How big are the stars here? They are always so young, wine and uncle and aunt's tales. Home. How long has it been since she's been home? How long since I was home quietly and very sadly, said the girl. William stroked her wrist with his finger. I think it is never too late to go home, he said. It is enough to buy a ticket. And then what? live by renting a place for the summer, going to the market. For a year or two. I was running away from that. And now to go back. That's not what you were running from. William said seriously. You just didn't have anyone really close to you there, so there was no point in staying. And where to get it? The meaning of these conversations on the soul, as if autumn slush spilled. Cold gray. William looked fondly at Adriana. I don't know Adriana. Everyone searches for the meaning for themselves. But what if there is someone who loves you? He stood up and lightly touched her hand with his lips. It was good to see you, Adriana. And now I have to get ready for my flight tonight. The bus was clumsy and even rusty in places. But Adriana wasn't the least bit saddened by it. It even pleased her a little. Probably because after 2 years of perfect roads, on which modern buses glide like oil, you stop feeling alive. And here, please, here's an uncomfortable seat. There's a bump on a curve. You bump your elbow, you feel alive. And it's not that good roads, great transport. They're bad, they're good, they're beautiful, but they're still alien. Adriana figured it out, such a simple explanation. Good, quality, modern. But the alien joy of recognition is not. And there was magic in that awful squeakiness after all. Adriana stepped out at her stop and noticed with renewed joy. Nothing here had changed. Even the asphalt was the same. It was piled up as a hill when they put it down, and it was still there. It doesn't melt from the heat, but the jeweler's one has blossomed. There's a whole sea of flowers around it, all so well-groomed. And there's a new sign, luminous, bright with little candles and love. The bridegroom in top hat, and Ty holds out a jewel box to his bride Piggy in the foyer. The bride averts her eyes shyly, but her face shows obvious pleasure. The girl immediately thought of Liam's charismatic favorite Frosia. She must have been painted on. Adriana, taking her time, walked to her own house, noticing every detail. There was Ethan's friendly grunting coming from the lot. They must be doing well with their ornamental mini-pig breeding, and Uncle Michael's house was completely drowned in the splendor of lush bushes. The girl tried to count the varieties and shades of flowers, but got confused. Yes, if she happened to come here on vacation, this was where she would want to stay. And her own house suddenly seemed to Adriana very small and somehow very old. Nothing, she said affectionately, running her palm along the rough walls. Every bulge, every roughness on the native walls she knew from childhood. We will prepare you, we will repair, and you'll be beautiful again. She continued to talk to the house. We'll get Uncle Michael and William to help us, and you'll be fine. You'll see, and I don't even have to be called, someone said above my ear. Adriana turned around. The same bronzed swarthiness, the same leather lace on William's broad chest. You're back after all. He smiled. And I knew you'd come back. Do you know why? Because, without thinking, Adriana answered, that there is someone here who loves me, and I love him too.